Breath of the Wild had such a huge world to fill with content and with characters, we feel they did a decent job.
There is a certain number of villages with different types of tribes that are very familiar to us, but we have two different feelings about the characters in this game.
The first thing we think of is that we'd love to see more villages and civilizations, even though this really is meant to be a post-apocalyptic world.
But at the same time, when the game is this huge and has a lot of NPCs in the villages and elsewhere around in the open fields and stables and whatnot, they might not have had the time or resources to put the effort into each individual character. So it's not like they all really stand out as different and significant characters.
Even so, there were enough of them for us to pick out 5 of the coolest and weirdest by the standards we've seen earlier in the series. When we count down these characters, we think of the ones that we find cool, either for their personality, appearance, or both.
The same goes for the weird ones, as we once again get to see the quirky and strange people that are so often found in the Zelda universe. By the way, we made these lists before any DLC came out, which we realize now is a pretty long time ago already. So no content from the DLC is taken into consideration here, like with the previous videos.
So, which ones did we pick out? We're the owners of Triforce. I'm owner 1.
And I'm owner 2. And this is our top 5 coolest and weirdest characters from Breath of the Wild. Each of the different tribes had their own champion, and they had a real chance to step up and be either cool or weird, since they play a more important role as characters within the story.
For number 5, we look to the Rito tribe, and wow, we can say for sure that our pick from this tribe most certainly isn't Revali. What a jerk.
No, we rather look to the guy who both accepts your help and helps you out. TEBA seems like a really tough guy, as he decides to take the matters about Vamedo into his own hands. Even though Link is usually the hero who cleans up everything in this series, it's always nice to see others stand up and fight for the greater good, even if he's only looking after his own village.
TEBA helps you take to the air after you go through a super easy trial about shooting targets while staying in the air. The two of you cooperate to take down Vamedo's shield so that Link can enter by himself.
We include TEBA because he takes matters into his own hands. He takes the dangers very seriously and allows Link to help him out after a little convincing. He might seem like a jerk at first, but he turns out to be a very good guy who accepts the help from others. All in all, he's pretty badass and a nice guy, and we find him pretty cool for that.
BEEDLE has become a very familiar and reoccurring character in the series since his first appearance in Wind Waker. He's been a favorite for many, and he is someone we like seeing as well. But he's often been a depressing character, a sort of a jerk in Skyward Sword, even though we can understand why he throws us off like that, so he's never really been that cool to us. But in Breath of the Wild, the guy is just really happy, and probably the happiest we've ever seen him be.
He's a character you'll run into a lot, cause he's at every stable to sell things from his huge backpack. He has many different dialogues with you, depending on where you meet him. From what we remember, there is one time he acts a bit weird and tells you to stop following him, before changing his mind.
Other than that, he's just full of joy, especially if you purchase something from him, which we really like seeing. He doesn't even get that sad if you don't buy anything either. In addition to that, it's nice to have a salesman like him everywhere, cause we often found ourselves having to purchase a whole lot of arrows in this game. And that was easy, knowing that this reliable guy was to be found at every stable in Hyrule.
Okay, maybe we should apologize in advance for him only landing number 3, but we get it. We still get why Prince Sidon is so popular.
Other than the fact that he's also the Prince of the Zoras and acts like it in a really good way by how he really wants the help from Link and is glad to help him as well, there's not much more we can say about him.
He really is a fun character, but he's placed a bit lower on the list because, well, there are other characters we liked better, and that pose, while cool and funny, just got old pretty quickly to us. We just think he does it too many times for it to actually stay funny, and it becomes rather overused.
Then again, he's a real chick, or fish magnet rather, as the females are crazy about him. Can't blame them though. It seems he has the mojo of Austin Powers with that same piece of clothing. Yeah, he's cool, but again, we've got other favorites. Just like BEEDLE, our number 2 coolest character can be found in many places around in Hyrule. KASS is a Rito often found at random places in the wilds, playing on his accordion, playing songs for Link that tell about hidden secrets in the areas around him.
Meaning that he hands out a number of shrine quests and other side quests. The song's lyrics speak in riddles, and we find it a lot of fun to try and figure out exactly what it is we're supposed to find, and where to find it.
Whenever you're done with all of his quests, he returns to Rito Village because he misses his family. And you know those little bird children that are involved with the recital at Warbler's Nest side quest? Yeah, they're his daughters. It's easy to see where their interest in music comes from.
He also tells about his teacher, whom he reveals to be a Sheikah poet who was in love with Zelda before the calamity struck. We always found a mystique around KASS, cause it was weird to see him all over the world and far away from his village. And we enjoyed that. We learned a lot about him in the end, but for a great while, both he and his teacher were mysterious, and you know how much we love mysteries.
He's a very nice guy to meet, and we think he's cool for being an adventurous man, but also a good family man when he returns to his home and reunites with his family. And if that wasn't enough, he also stands around at a couple of stables, playing the familiar and lovable Epona song, which is fitting and nice, so we don't have to hear the darn stables music every darn time. It's not a bad theme, but when you hear it as often as you do in this game, it gets annoying very quickly, like we've mentioned before in other videos. Thank you, KASS. So, in the entry about the 5th place here, we mentioned the champions and, well, if you know anything about us, you probably predicted who number 1 is. Take it away, Only True.
DARUK, of course. Him being a Goron is of course a cool thing, but his character and personality just scream Goron. He's big, beardy, and just a friendly guy that we really enjoyed seeing in the game. He's very friendly, he's helpful, most of the champions are, but still, he just seems like a guy you could easily hang out with. He cares about Link's life, he cares a lot about his descendants and the next generations, and, well, he's one of the few characters in the game that actually has a decent voice acting. It's nothing spectacular, but that's pretty much how I expected a Goron to sound like. Add the fact that the ability hands Link is sort of a spell of defense, which is very Goron-like, and you have a very well-rounded character from the Goron tribe. He may not be as cool as Darunia, but he's definitely up there with Darbus, Darmani and other Goron leaders.
Biased, you say? Nah.
Hyrule has 2 old and very short, but clever Sheikah scientists. We have the adorable Pura over in Hateno village, and we have Robbie in Akala. The latter is the one we found sort of weird.
Robbie is far from the weirdest, but it's mostly how he's presented that strikes us as a bit odd. Here's a very old man who strikes poses and has a guitar riff in the background. Not only when he introduces himself, but also when he's talking about defeating the calamity.
It is a bit humorous, and even though it's not clear, it can be interpreted that he sort of became affected by the artificial intelligence he created along with his wife, Jerin. They created this machine that he named Cherry, and she could talk to Robbie. Jerin actually got hurt by how they interacted with each other, so we could interpret this as jealousy caused by Robbie's affection to the AI. And that's sort of weird to us, if that really is the case. Again, it's just an interpretation. A lot of different shrine quests are about finding an orb to drop in a place on a pedestal, and there are many different ways to find these orbs. One of the weirdest encounters we had was not because of the orb itself, but because of the person who's currently keeping it.
At Puffer Beach in the southern part of Hyrule, you can find Loon, and what a good name for her. She's sitting next to it, stroking it, and seems to really enjoy its company. Yes, its company. This big object's company, which she calls Roscoe.
She barely notices it when Link stands around. Look, we've heard about how people in isolation can find a friend in dead objects, like how MatPat talks about that and the companion cube in Portal, so this might be the case here. She might have been alone for a long while and made a friend out of the orb. If that's the case, then there's a good reason why she's weird like this, and why we put her only at number 4.
However, it's still weird when she's not really stuck there. This is not an isolated island. This is just the beach on the same piece of land that the rest of Hyrule is. And when she only gives up her attention towards the orb as long as she gets to see photos of 3 different types of guardians and suddenly seems totally fine afterwards and not as disturbed by loneliness as she did at first, then we really wonder if she had a good reason for being that into the orb in the first place. Where's Master KOHGA? Master KOHGA? You forgot Master KOHGA. What about Master KOHGA? They forgot Master KOHGA. By the way, where is Master KOHGA? What about Master KOHGA? You forgot Master KOHGA. How could you forget him? No! We did not forget about Master KOHGA. We intentionally excluded him because he's not an obligatory boss to defeat. Sure, you do have to beat him if you want to enter Vanda Boris, but since this game is full of freedom, you can head straight for Hyrule Castle whenever you want. And when you get there, you have to fight all of the Blight Ganon bosses, in which Master KOHGA is nowhere to be found amongst. So, you have to defeat all of them no matter what, but not Master KOHGA. He's optional, and that's why we excluded him.
Alright. You just sit down and take a break. Just let me handle this one. So yeah, this is where we'll talk about Master KOHGA. Sure, he was a boss, but just because we didn't include him on the boss ranking doesn't automatically mean that we forgot about him. We do everything we can with intentions. Anyway, Master KOHGA is the leader of the Yiga clan, and he just had to appear here. We mentioned earlier in the enemies video that the Yiga clan was sort of a disappointment, even though they still appeared on the coolest enemies list. They had a lot of potential, but something of that was lost, and a part of that was with their master. He was such a pushover. He wasn't intimidating, he wasn't really that threatening, and we couldn't take him seriously. He comes off as a lazy and clumsy idiot, which shows both before and during the battle. It's so easy, and his ways of attacking never seemed smart to begin with. Then we have the cutscene after the battle, and well, do we need to say anything more?
So, are we past KOHGA now?
Yeah.
Alright, so number 2 on our list is from another shrine quest. We've seen a woman in Lune who might be suffering from loneliness or something like that, but we really have no explanation for this next character, other than that she probably has a big rage issue when it comes to people stepping on her flowers.
This is of course Magda on Floret Sandbar. And yes, she has a good reason to get mad when she kindly asks you not to step on her flowers. But when you have to walk through a narrow maze towards the shrine, and when the path isn't always clear and a few flowers stick up right in the middle of the path, while you try to avoid or fight off enemies, it gets a little hard to avoid stepping on them a tiny bit.
And again, she has a good reason to react, but if it happens too many times, that's when you feel the wrath of Magda.
Seriously. It's okay to get mad after that, but it's just the way she rages that's so weird and hilarious. She starts running across the flowers herself before collapsing, and then takes it all out on you.
She doesn't hurt you a whole lot, but 3 hearts is a bit more than what should be expected from an NPC.
So, for her to go on a rampage like this and doesn't seem to have anything better to do than stand around there 24/7 in all kinds of weather just to look at those flowers on that very small island, makes Magna land on the number 2 spot. So, who is the weirdest one on our list?
That would be the short, old guy with funny facial hair, fangs, and a huge love for monsters, KILTON.
This is the kind of oddball we love to see in Zelda games. If you don't stumble upon him on your own, you might hear from people in Akala that there's this weird person pushing some cart around and trying to sell stuff from his shop that he calls Fang and Bone, which says a lot about him when he has a reputation like that.
We mentioned that he loves monsters, and that really shows. He sells masks and stuff that look like the enemies found around in Hyrule. They can actually be helpful, because if you wear, say, a bokoblin mask, then bokoblins won't attack you.
He also sells the Dark Link costume, which is cool. So, he is a bit cool, cause we like monsters too. Okay, no, he's weird. First of all, he just looks weird, but it's strange how he gets a little jump scare when you visit his shop. Maybe it's the fear factor that fascinates him about monsters.
If you want to purchase his wares though, you need to use his currency, which he calls Mon. At first, he says he wants to fight the establishment with his currency, which would be fine, but then quickly reveals that there is no establishment, and he just loves monsters so much that he turns monster parts into money. So, he's not really trading his wares for monster parts, which could make sense, but he turns the monster parts into money, gives them to you, which then can be used to purchase his wares. Okay.
So the guy travels from town to town during the night in his cart. He has his own currency that only he uses, and he's such a weird looking little guy. He's on the border to creepy with his facial expressions, and especially when he says, "I hope you like being hunted for your organs." So yeah, KILTON is definitely our #1 weirdest character in Breath of the Wild. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.